Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to today's stream. Today is what the hell day is it? I'm not even quite sure. Today's Wednesday, March 10th, which actually marks a very, very nice anniversary for me. Hang on a second. For those of you that don't know, today, March 10th, is actually the anniversary of my kidney transplant. Thank you to my brother Frank, who today, and it really is actually today is the day I received the kidney, well, his kidney, today, which a week from today was the beginning, or marked the beginning of the pandemic. So it's going to be a year not only of my transplant but of the pandemic, starting here in California, in the major Los Angeles metropolitan area. So with that, like I said, I would like to say a very, very, very heartfelt thank you and I love you to my brother Frank. And if you guys are noticing, if you guys have been watching, I kind of had changed up my background a bit. If you look over my right shoulder, you'll see there's actually the urn of my dog Steer, who I had to put down back in January. Sorry, still hurts very much. Just recently, a couple of days ago, my wife and my daughter surprised me with Steer in stuffed form. And it's not a taxidermy. It's actually they went online and found this company that you send in pictures, various pictures of your dog from various angles, and they ask you a couple questions, and they're able to actually very accurately pretty much have a stuffed version of your pet. In this case, it was Steer. Now, Steer was literally with me for everything. Got me through my transplant. And actually got me through the whole time I was sick. Sorry. So without Steer, and without Frank, everything would be very different here. Either I wouldn't be here, or I'd still be very, very sick. So I'd like to say a very, very much thank you and love to both of them. But anyways, sorry, that I would share, get very personal there. So, but without further ado, and to let everybody know, pretty much Steer is going to be with me for the rest of all of my streams, at least for as long as I can keep it up. So, anyways, we'll get into today's stream. Here, let me just kind of compose myself a bit here. Didn't expect it to be this hard, guys. So anyways, so back to the topic at hand. Excuse me. So, as you saw from the thumbnail, I was able to take a project that I was assigned that had a very, very tight. It was about $120,000 project at a medical facility, the one that we did a lot of work in, and it was in the emergency department. Well, we had to pretty much remodel their emergency, where they received the emergencies, and they had it was a two-step thing. Hang on a second. Okay, so the project was phased into three things. It was actually supposed to be all under one, but what they ended up doing was it was to what do you call it? Sorry, I'm trying to compose myself back here, get myself back on track. So the way the whole thing was supposed to go down was that in one fell swoop, they were supposed to remodel where the emergencies were received. And so they had what they called resuscitation rooms, where they brought in the emergencies and they brought them straight there. That's where they did all of their kind of like a triage type of thing. But they also had equipment in the event they needed to resuscitate someone who came in. And they also had not mobile, but they had an X-ray set up so that they could actually do it right then and there. Or what was it? Not an MRI. But there was something that they had hanging from the ceiling as part of this whole thing. So that was the first phase. The second phase was actually what I ended up managing on my own for this that we're going to talk about today. And then the third phase was that they were supposed to kind of redo and revamp the entire emergency where the ambulances came, their emergency ramp. They were supposed to bring out and construct like a canopy of sorts, if you will. And so when they were doing this, like I said, they broke it out. It was all supposed to be under one contract, but they ended up breaking it out and phasing it in these three phases. So our company actually ended up doing the first phase, which was doing the resuscitation rooms, which turned out to be fantastic. And we worked very, very well with the hospital and coordinating and having the what do you call it, the emergencies when they came in to be routed through around and not through the main construction area. So that was great. That worked out very, very well. We got that done and everything. And then they actually turned around and put this part, the second phase, out to bid. And lo and behold, we won this one also. And we had plenty of other companies also bid this one. So like I said, it was about $120,000. But what we were doing was only about, what was it? Because the way we had priced it initially was that we were going to get this one also. So we had a lot of money already into that first phase. So a lot of our profit came from there. So this one, we only had about a $5,000 profit going into it. So what we were actually had to do was kind of across the main hall where a lot of the current, how do you call it? The current foot traffic for the nurses coming in and out was right next to the resuscitation rooms. Okay, so they were coming in and out through there, and they had all their supplies and things out there in a container. So this was across that small hallway. They had a where they received patients. Oh no, I'm sorry. They received patients and everything. So this was a small area, small room where they could actually hose down and clean off that equipment from the ambulances. So the backboards and things like that would go into this room. They actually had an was it an elastomeric coating on the floor with the drain, so that they could, any blood and things like that, they could hose off and clean up. And so that went into this room. So they had some cabinets. Of course, when you hose things off, they're splashing all over the place. So they had tile 4 feet up the wall, and they had the set of cabinets. And of course, they weren't really protected. They were just, your plain old regular PLAM, commercial grade, of course. And the toe kick was a 4-inch toe kick that was literally just a 4-inch slab that they brought up the elastomeric coating up to the bottom of the cabinets. So the splashing and stuff, the bottom, when the water splashed, the main part didn't really get any water on it because it was on this coating that, went out to this drain. So that was the first part of this project. So the first part was to get rid of those cabinets and fix the tile on that wall there, kind of bring it around and feather in a new coating to be compatible with this coating, so that it all ties in and it goes into the drain that's already there. That was the first part of the project. The second part of the project kind of was on the other side of that wall. There was a closet. So because we were getting rid of this, there was stuff on the other side also. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to also, where at the level at which those cabinets ended, they wanted to take part of the adjacent room and make a janitor's closet, which was fine because as part of the first phase, we actually ended up taking their janitor's closet from them, from housekeeping. So this is where they were going to get a new one. Everything was good. Now, another part of this was way on the other side of the emergency department. They wanted to redo a small space where there was a hallway that connected this part of the hospital to the old part of the hospital, but the old part of the hospital was being demolished. So with that was almost like a dead end just outside the elevators. So what they wanted to do there was do their IT stuff in there. That was going to be like their network closet, if you will. And so what was going to happen there was that let's see, we were going to build a wall with a door, and obviously all was being inspected by OSHPD, and so it was going to have to be inspected with OSHPD, built up to the standards of OSHPD and everything. And so that was kind of like they wanted to do that at the same time, but at the same time, if you will, we had fire marshal stuff going on. They had a bunch of other stuff going on. So that was kind of there. And so, see, there was that, and then we also had in the hallway as part of the, what was it? Was it as part of the, oh, no, that's correct. So all this is going on. Sorry, kind of all coming back to me. So we had to do that part that was in that little room that gave the housekeeping also that little janitor's closet there to do the IT stuff. But just across the hall, we also had to do on both sides of the wall, we had to create an alcove type of thing with some casework that was there to actually hold some of the equipment that the emergency techs used during that the whole thing, where when they had an emergency, there was some equipment that went into this casework that really was like a tall cabinet, open face, so there was no doors on it, with like 3 shelves so that they could put things in and out of, and there was a countertop right next to it so that they could put things on there and also use it to kind of write and do other things there. So what they ended up having to do was, we had to block that off to do that construction, and on the other side of that wall we also had to block that off because that part of the wall actually had a sink that needed to put in and with other casework. So this was all like woof, So what we were doing there is the way everything went down was that we got that small room first, and like I said, this was all going down, and so everything was real tight because with overhead and profit we only had about $5,000. That's not a lot, and especially, I mean, it is a public works project, so any little thing as far as change orders go, we really have the mechanism there to recover everything that we possibly can. But the only thing is that in contracting you have to kind of give and take with even the small things. So luckily for me, a lot of things kind of started falling in place. So once we started to demo, we actually got the far area first, and we actually got the small room to begin with. So that small room where the people came and went, where the ambulances were able to take that equipment where they needed to hose it down and things like that, we got that area first. Luckily, here was where everything starts. We demoed the cabinets, no big deal. And so we needed to, fix or actually make the new entrance for the we wanted to make that entrance for the janitor's closet at the same time that we were doing all this demo. So we were able to do that, but because it's a fire rated hallway, there was some special things that needed to go on. So we actually ended up, in order to save time, we used Kong studs to make the connection from the floor all the way to the top deck, or to the deck above. And instead of having to, piece together two studs on each side in order to make the king studs, we used Kong studs. And you guys should really, really look that up. For if you guys are doing any Oshpot work where you need king studs, it saves a lot of time, and they are Oshpot approved to be used on projects. So I very, very much encourage everyone, if you're looking at this, if you haven't ran into this, these types of studs, for it to be substituted in for king studs, very look into it. Kong studs, just like King Kong, Kong Kong studs. I believe they're actually produced by Semco products that do a lot of framing stuff. Do a lot of framing studs and metal studs. Look into it. They'll save you a freaking headache a lot of times. So we went with that. Now, when we were doing this, because of the nature of the beast, we actually had to put fire rated plastic on the hallway side while we were doing this. And I actually had to have, I only had one framer that was doing all of this, all right, because it was technically a small project as far as that went. So when he was there doing all this stuff, I asked him to please stay to finish putting in that and doing as much as possible, because we also had a door frame to put in. So we started early in the morning, and he worked for 11 hours that day, almost 12, but not quite. So he worked, I would say, 11 and a half hours. So and that was the only, in the entire project, that was the only overtime that anyone had to work for this project, other than myself. But as a project manager, we're on salary, and there are times when I do have to do that, and we have to kind of make that sacrifice, if you will. So he worked 3.5 hours of overtime, but after that there was absolutely no overtime whatsoever. But when he did the demo and everything, we were ready. And when he left, we actually had the demolition for that concrete curb show up. So when they showed up, we were looking at it, and I told him, I have a feeling that slab is not attached to the floor. And he's like, well, this is really a public works project. I really don't think that they would just pour a slab right over it. And look at the guy and go, you do realize the facility that we're working at, right? And he just kind of chuckled. He goes, yes, that is very true. So I am pretty sure that is not attached to the floor, to the original slab that was here. He goes, well, we'll see. Because I don't know, if this room was part of the original design. I go, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. So have at it. So he goes, okay, well, we'll see. We go, how much you want to bet if that is not attached? I go, I'll tell you what, if that is attached, I will buy you your lunch tomorrow. I will give you $10 out of my own pocket to buy you lunch if that slab is attached to the floor. And he looks at me and he goes, well, and I told him, if it is not attached to the floor and I win, the only thing I ask is you knock an hour off of, knock an hour off of your labor, or your minimum here, which would be like $17, or actually no, it was like $50 or something like that. And he goes, oh, I can't make that call. I go, okay, I'll tell you what. If it's attached, I owe you lunch. If it's not attached, you owe me lunch the next time you see me. I don't want your cash, but you can buy me lunch the next time you see me, and I guarantee it won't be more than $10. And he said, okay, deal. All right, have at it. He goes, okay, well, let's take a look. He walks over to his truck and he picks up, a huge sledgehammer. Comes back and he goes, we'll see. Goes, all right, go for it. Hey, you have at it. So he breaks a piece off, and sure enough, you can see, obviously, that the slab was poured on top of whatever the existing slab was. Go, all right, go for it. And he takes the biggest swing I've ever seen anyone take on that slab and hits it on the side. Sure enough, the whole slab moves. I win. Number one, which means they had planned an 8-hour day. So now I'm only being charged 2 hours for labor, and that boom, price for demolition just gets sliced literally not in a quarter, because obviously we're in a quarter. They have the reduced labor to break everything apart, and then their travel time gets cut also, actually, because he had to go to another one um, right after that. So he was gonna work extra long day, but now it turns out he could show up early and he was only gonna work a regular day. So actually they cut my travel time, gone. So I was like, awesome, saved a bunch of money on that, especially like I said, because it's public works. So everything is a little inflated, if you want to say inflated labor costs. So that's gone. All right. So they went on, and I only have that very minimal overtime, so this kind of made up and then some. We caught a couple breaks as we went, and also the plumbers, when they were gonna put in their new sink, lo and behold, according to the plans, they had to. I literally drilled through a steel beam. And when I was looking at the plans, in the afterthought, when they found the what do you call it, the steel beam underneath, hey, obviously it wasn't coordinated, and that is the architect's job on public works, especially here in California. I don't know, you're gonna have to check in your state if you're not here, or even your country if you're not where I am, which is, like I said, California. We're not responsible. The contractor is not responsible for any, or for the completeness or accuracy of the plans or the specs. So that's not our fault. But in order to save time, we're looking around, and here in California, if the OSHPD inspector does approve it as a field condition, we can use something called a technique where we dirty arm the sink, which means we don't go to the wall directly behind it, but if it's close enough, like I believe that it's 18, the sink needs to be to the center of the sink, and the faucet needs to be a minimum of 18 inches from the adjacent wall. So as long as we're within that, we can actually drain to the adjacent wall and not just the wall right behind the sink. Luckily, thank goodness, we were able to do that. So now that cut the price of that work, because they were planning to drill through the steel beam because that's the way it was designed. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. And if you guys didn't know, my background is actually in structural steel. I had my company, I erected structural steel. I actually was studying to become a structural engineer before I kind of fell into project management and left the engineering part. But anyways, back to the story. And so, we caught a break there. And in a couple other areas, we also caught breaks where the conditions that the mechanical and the structural engineers and the architects, some of the stuff that they were assuming, which, oh gosh, I would say if each of them took an 8-hour day to actually get up in the ceilings and, do a little more investigation, they could have saved all this money that it actually ended up costing with, the things that they were assuming, and it's kind of sucks because all of these firms do plenty of work at this medical institution. So you would think that they would know to kind of do their homework instead of just kind of going by, well, this is what the condition that we had in this building, or in another building, or from other stuff around there. Because pretty much all the conditions that we usually run into, we didn't necessarily have to build to those assumptions. As you can see from these last two examples, very easily, by doing just a little bit of research, we could have avoided all these things. Kept the design, but yet still be in compliance with not only the local codes, but the state codes and OSHPD code. Easily could have been done, and they could have probably saved themselves, at least the $13,000 extra that I ended up making. But it is what it is. So we ended up as the major benefactor of these assumptions not being correct, and actually being a lot easier to do. So a lot of the risks that we anticipated actually ended up not manifesting, and the results of the non-manifestation, we actually had better techniques or even better ideas of which to complete this work without having exorbitant costs. And actually, when we credit them for some of these things that we didn't ended up we ended up not having to do, we still netted an additional $13,000 over what we actually were planning to. So they thought they got a better deal, but actually we ended up getting a lot better deal out of this project. And so that was pretty much it as far as those two parts. There was over there in the IT room, was what we called it over there. We didn't really run into any issues, except for the fact that the ceiling was so impacted already with things up there, because obviously with the IT stuff you need a bunch of cabling to be done. But just there was a doorway that we ended up covering up, which actually is where a lot of the IT stuff was coming into the entire building. So the cabling was already there, but it was coming out of that room and trying to get through. They wanted to have an 8-foot ceiling. Unfortunately, there was a huge HVAC trunk that was running through there that obviously they weren't able to move, because it would cost probably like 3 to 4 times the value of the project itself that we're working on, while we run into this. So we ended up lowering the ceiling from an 8-foot ceiling down to a 7'6" ceiling, and we ended up building the wall a little bit different than what was originally on the plans. We had to push it out a little bit in order to get a little more clearance on one of the sides for the cabling to turn. And yeah, it was a fucking mess. I actually ended up getting the engineers, the mechanical and the structural engineer, out along with the electrical engineers, so that they could look, because we had the ceiling open. They go, look, this is what is here. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that was there, and I didn't know that was there. I go, all you guys had to do was send someone to stick their head up there, because I'm not a really small guy, but there was enough room for me to at least poke my head up to about probably about up to where you see in the ceiling or in this video, and you could you could see what's in the way, what's there, what is not there, where they could fit things. So we ended up having to kind of reconfigure a couple things to get up in there and get the cabling through. Even like that, we had to lower the ceiling 6 inches in order to get that and still meet code. Otherwise, they wanted to come down to 7 feet, but of course I'm 6 foot. The doors around there are 6'8". With your trim, you're hitting 7 foot right there, and that's just plain old not allowed. So it is what it is, especially with Oshpot. So we had to work with what there is available to us, and that's exactly what we had, the conditions that we had. So with all the catches that or the breaks that we caught, there was still something that was kind of nagging at us. It happened to be that the casework in that little alcove in the hallway where they were supposed to put equipment there, underneath the countertop that went next to that cabinet, apparently there was supposed to be a small other piece of casework that had a drawer for a printer, for a small laser printer in it. But of course, they didn't tell us what size printer, what dimensions to make it, or anything like that when you looked at the plan. As a matter of fact, there was no call out for that piece of casework. All there was, literally, I kid you not, was a rectangle on the plans. And it wasn't touching the floor, didn't look like casework, there was nothing referencing it, it was just a rectangle. So we didn't think much of it. Okay, well, somebody must have, drawn the rectangle for something else and accidentally left it there and never came back to delete it. That's, oh well, whatever. So we didn't even account for that. So lo and behold, a couple weeks later, like literally we're almost coming down to closing out the project when the project manager for this medical institution comes to us and comes to me and asks me, hey, Oscar, what happened to the piece of casework that goes down here? And I piece of casework that goes down where? He's like, under the countertop. I go, why would there be anything under the countertop? I mean, there's nothing there. It's if someone wants to bring a chair, that's at ADA height, so they can sit down there. And he said, no, 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 no. There's supposed to be a printer down there, and it goes into a little drawer that you can pull out. And I looked at him and go, and I, at this point, I had the plans with me, so I would sit down, find a table, open them up, and go, what are you talking about? He said, right there. And I go, that rectangle? That's supposed to be a printer? He goes, well, it represents the printer, but also the casework that the printer goes into. I go, how am I even supposed to know that that's supposed to represent a printer? Like, well, the detail's right up there, right above it. The detail's right there. And I look and I go, okay. So it says, detail for casework at printer. And I'm looking and I go, but it's just a rectangle on the elevation. Well, yeah, but the detail's right there. And I go, but how am I supposed to know that that rectangle, that lone rectangle that has no call out, no, detailed drawing to it, just a rectangle on the section, how am I supposed to know that that is, that represents a piece of casework with the printer in it? And all his defense was, but literally right above it, the detail's right there. And my argument is, but how am I supposed to know that that detail applies to this rectangle, this unmarked, unlabeled rectangle? But because I'm telling you, and the detail is right there. So how was I supposed to know that if nobody asked and it was never pointed out to us or any of the other bidders at bid time? How are we supposed to know that this rectangle is supposed to be that piece of casework with the printer in it? And he goes, but it's right there. Well, now. And I go, but that still doesn't tell me to look there. So how am I supposed to know? And he's like, but it's right there. How, where else would it go? And hang on a second, guys. Let me reach. Oh, no. I lost what I was reaching for. Let me grab it from a different angle here. Sorry, guys. Oh, there it is. Found it. Let me get that in there. I gotta change my setup, you guys. Down here with the computer and whatnot. Sorry about that. So, anyways, back to the project manager. So I'm looking at this and I can't tell that was supposed to, that was supposed to be that. And so he made the comment about, but the details right there. How can you not tell, that goes there? And I go, but how do I know that that detail references my section, my elevation, and that's what it's supposed to be? But it's on the page, and I'm looking. I go, okay, let's think this through. You're telling me that this detail is on this page, so it's supposed to go to this elevation. Well, can you show me on this elevation where all of these other details apply? Given that literally all of the other details on this page are about a piece of glass sitting on a countertop at various locations, actually as that weren't even part of this phase. The complete part of a completely different phase that actually was already completed like the year prior. So he goes, so you're telling me that all of these details on this page apply to my section. Can you please point out where there's any glass on this elevation? Goes, well, no, that was part of another project. Okay, so how am I supposed to know that this piece of casework with the printer in it wasn't part of that other project? He goes, well, because I'm telling you right now. I go, correct. So I'll write up a change order. He goes, no. What do you mean a change order if it's part of this project? Well, correct. Now that you're telling me this is after the fact of the bid, so I did not know. I did not have any knowledge, nor did any of the other bidders, that this detail applied to this elevation, and which is part of this project. And so he says, well, it's supposed to be included, so I think I'm gonna have to call your boss. And go, oh, you want to call my boss because this was missed? He goes, well, yeah. Go, perfect. Go ahead and give her a call. I know for a fact she is sitting in front of her computer And on her computer, right on the desktop, she will be able to cite you the exact section in the law of the state of California for these types of medical institutions about how contractors are not held responsible for the completeness or the accuracy of the plans that they bid on. Go ahead and give her a call. I will stand right here and wait for the response. I kid you not, the guy just looked at me and goes, "Fine, write me a change order." And he walks out of his own office. I know the law. I'm not going to be pushed around. You might be able to get away with this with other people who don't quite know the law. But, this is kind of a two-part lesson here, guys. As a project manager, you always need to be looking how we can improve, the effectiveness and the efficiency of our decisions and the work that, we are managing, and the employees that we are managing, the resources that we have. We need to make sure that we're employing them as efficiently and as effectively as we possibly can in order to successfully manage a project to completion. But this also includes, part of your job is also knowing what we build to, the standards and the building code that we need to build to, but also we can't be ignorant of the law, and which might allow for these other project managers of representing the clients to take advantage of us. So in this case, I would, as a minimum, I would have taken a $400 hit. So, like I say, but not knowing about how much we were actually saving, which actually, in reality, I did know. I was keeping track of everything. I knew where we were at with our contract and how much labor, obviously, we had left over, and knowing that we still had a small pile of money, I could have easily said, "Okay, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it." But then, when we got the change order, yes, it was $400, but that was only for the piece of casework. Now we had to pay for their mobilization once again to our project because they were already done and gone. Because, like I said, we were literally already at the closeout phase of this project. So they would have had to come back, so it would have been mobilization, it would have been travel charge for coming back out here again. Then, obviously the labor and the material, and their closeout again of the project and all that stuff. So that $400 piece of casework all of a sudden turned into an $800 change order. And of course, when I presented the change order, the guy, the PM from the medical institution, was looking at it going, "Why is this $800? And I go, "It's broken down for you right there. Labor material from them, plus their mobilization, plus their the mobilization, plus their labor, right, to get them out there, and all that stuff. And look at it, it's all broken down. And plus our, the law specifically says how much us as general contractors are able to mark up the sub's change order. And it was there, clear as day, black and white. I don't know what you want me to do. Everything's there. And all the, you want, all the backup is right there. There's a copy of their quote, labor materials, the mobilization. I mean, everything was broken down line by line. I asked for it that way so that there was no question. The guy looked at it and he said, "Okay, forget it. I'm not gonna, approve this change order. We'll just leave it out." Hey, perfectly fine. That's one less thing for me to take care of, right? So, guys, know the law in your state, in your county, in your city, and all that stuff. All the local codes that you need to make sure that you know. And also, like that, the contract law of your state. You need to make sure that you know this. I know that here in California, when we take the exam for you to get your license, no matter what the license is, you do have to take a law portion. They're actually, here in California, it's broken into two. You've got your contractor's license exam is broken into two parts: your trade and the law. So you need to make sure that you know exactly what the law is, because obviously they're not going to ask you about every single thing in the law. They pick and choose to, the questions to have a major, or almost like a universal representation of the entire code and the law, so that it's representative of it, so that they can assure or at least have a good understanding that you understand the law in general. So you need to make sure that you know these aspects. And like I said, don't let yourself be pushed around. Make sure that you represent yourself and that you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you can just look yourself make you're just gonna make yourself look like an idiot trying to justify your position just because you think it's right. Okay, don't be ignorant because that just makes an ass out of you. Not even assuming things where the adage, when you assume things, you make an ass out of you and me. This, you're literally making an ass out of yourself. You're making yourself look ignorant. Okay, so make sure that you read up on your laws and everything for where you are doing work, because that can really save you a lot of money. Can you imagine had we gone to arbitration or anything like that, and for someone to say, well, pay half and you pay half, we would have been out that money. But anyways, all in all, with 3.5 hours of additional labor, of overtime labor, I should say, I was still able, once we ran all the numbers, once the office manager made sure that all of the receipts are in, all of the payroll had been done, all of the taxes had been figured out, and all this and that and everything, we sat down and go, okay, when you do your post-mortem on a project, your post-mortem report, and you guys sit down and take a look and see, let's see, what else do we have? What else is there for, that the lessons learned, and what else that, we can take away from this project. And so in doing that, we sat down, we took a look and said, okay, running the numbers, where did we take, where did we mess up? And honestly, it was just a couple little things here and there, logistics, getting things, maybe a delay of a day or something like that. But in essence, when we were taking a look at everything, it was just the breaks that we were able to catch, and like that, me reporting all of my income, obviously, or my pay, the hours that I worked, and figuring that and everything. We honestly don't know. All of everything added up. We don't know how, but in running the project, I was able to turn our $5,000 potential profit into a profit of a little bit over $18,000 on this project. On a one that was contracted for approximately $120,000. Can you imagine, guys? $120,000. 10% of that is $12,000. 5%. I mean, the five. So if you think about it, the $5,000 was what, maybe about like 4% of the project was going to be actual profit. But at $18,000, it ended up being closer to like 11 or 12, like, what was that? I think it was about 11 or 12% from 4%. So I more than doubled, almost tripled. Yeah, that's right. So I ended up with a little more than tripling our bottom line on this project. Our profit ended up being $18,000. Of course, when we were sitting there, I'm talking to the my boss, the senior project manager, who's the wife of the operation, and she's technically the VP, and the president / CEO / COO is sitting there looking at it and going, and he looks at her and he looks at me, he looks at the office manager, he goes, well, Dan, honey, I think we need to have Oscar running more of our projects. I just started cracking up. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I go, wow, are you serious? You guys checking? She's like, we double and triple check the numbers to make sure. We couldn't believe it either. Like, wow. And honestly, I told them, because they asked me, well, what did you do different? And I go, I have just employed all of the tactics and all of the strategies that you guys taught me. I honestly didn't do anything. I even, approved the 3.5 hours of overtime in order to get that, just the aspect of getting those Kong studs in and getting the door up so that, we could keep the rating on that hallway in a day, so that, they could be set to go for the next day, and we didn't have to worry about, and do fire watch or anything like that. that was an extra expense that, on our part. They were looking at everything and they said, we saved on the demo, we, that extra demo, and we saved on this and a couple of things here, a couple of things there. I was like, man, honestly, I thought our income or our profit was going to be a little less than the $5,000 that we were projected to make, because I did have to actually buy a few extra things that we hadn't accounted for. I think it was a couple anchors, so I had to spend at least the price of some anchors, and they were the Hilti, the KBTZs is what they were using. They didn't allow the quick bolt 3s or anything like that anymore, because of, for Oshpod. So they had to be quick bolt TZs, and I mean nothing special, they're just the regular carbon steel. They weren't like stainless steel or anything like that. So there was that expense, there was the overtime, and I think there was a couple of things or two that I approved as change orders, right? There's these little things that were here and there that needed to be done. So that just goes to show you guys, if you actually have the ability to plan out your project, stick to your schedule, manage your costs that super tight, you can really make a killing without trying. If you make this an every project practice, if you figure out what your best practices are and you employ those best practices like all of the time on all of your projects, you might even change the way you bid, right? And if you have these standards set in your company where you have new employees coming in and you ingrain this into them and you instill these into them and say, these are the best practices that you need to make sure that you're practicing here, you can turn every project into that super successful project where you're going to make more money than was projected by following those best practices. But you need to figure out what your best practices are. And like I've said, I am super lucky that I was able to find a job with this small/medium company. Actually, really is a small company, construction company, but we were able to work on multi-million-dollar projects here and there. And so by doing that, by me luckily getting there and just learning from them all of the strategies that they use, and like I said, not letting yourself be bullied, especially by older project managers that think they know best. You guys can do this too. I mean, there are going to be some losers. Don't get me wrong. Not every job is perfect. There's going to be some risks that are completely out of your control that manifest themselves into issues. All right. And that could even include a change in management with the ownership, a change in their project manager. You go from a nice guy who sees everything very fairly and treats us fairly to some dick that comes along and just tries to squeeze everything, every penny out of the contractor that they can. All right. But if you learn how to deal with people as part of all this, you can mitigate that risk and make it pretty much bring the chance of something happening there to close to zero and make it a very low chance of something happening. All right. And this will help you not only as your stress, but also with all of this working and making sure that you keep a tight rein on your costs for a project, guys. And you know what that means? It means you're going to be able to complete more projects by having more time available and not dicking around with stupid shit, trying to close out these projects, so that you have more time to get more projects under your belt and bring in more money to the company you're working for if you're not working for yourself already. Okay, guys? So you have to understand that everything we learn as we go along our journey in project management, you need to make sure that you can turn around and apply it to the other projects that are going on or that future projects that are coming up. Excuse me. And so it's always a learning process. We always have to take what we just learned from the last project. This is why it's very important for you guys to sit down after you complete a project. Make time. Oh man, make time to sit down and go through and think about how that project went and say, okay, this is what we did right, this is what we did wrong. We need to learn these lessons and put them in our risk register or whatever it is, however you guys keep track of the things that went wrong or have gone wrong or might go wrong in a project, put them all together in one place so you can refer back to them. And this is how companies grow and learn from their mistakes, guys. And this is part of project management. Towards the very end, you need to be able to reflect back on the project, and sooner rather than later, so you don't forget something small. Of course, a lot of bad things you don't forget very easily. So you need to be able to go back in relative amount of time, or in a good amount of time, so you don't forget the events that happened or these little issues that came up that might set your job back. Okay, you need to come back, take a look at them, do your post-mortem evaluation and report, so that you can see what we did right, what we did wrong, where can we improve, and what the mechanics or the different things that can be applied to future projects, so we don't make these mistakes again, or we can mitigate them better, or we have a better chance of identifying these risks before the job even starts, and have that risk management plan in place before we start freaking swinging hammers and digging up shit and all that stuff. It's very important for the success of any project to manage these risks, guys. But yeah, so that's the story about how I turned our $5,000 tight little budget, or the tight little profit, into 18 grand, which I did see a bonus from, by the way. That was a good project. And this was before the next project that I was project managing. It was the one where I already had a project on my plate. Oh no, I had this project on my plate, and the owners decided to take a week off for Thanksgiving. Well, actually, they didn't just decide on a whim. Something they do every year. The problem was they didn't come back until after Christmas voluntarily, and left me running two projects, one of which I was semi-involved with until they left. And oh yeah, I'll take care of it. No, yeah. And then I get that phone call. Oscar, we didn't make it back. I think we're going to stay another week. All right, no, that's cool. Everything's going fine. Yeah, you want pictures? Here, I'll video conference call. Look at this. This is how everything's going. Oh, man, that looks great. All right, awesome, cool. I'll see you guys in a week. All right, no problem. Yeah. And then, hey, Oscar, we decided to stay another week. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, it's the beginning of December. Oh, no, actually, what is that? The second week of September or December. Okay. All right. Yeah, no problem. Everything's good. And then, yeah, they didn't come back until after Christmas, after the New Year. Really, is when they come back. I was wrapping that job up for them already, and we were already getting final inspections. So, anyways, yeah. So you guys make sure you guys are making sure you guys are learning as you go along. I mean, this job really is about learning, and implementing what you've learned all the time, at every opportunity you can, in order to be as effective and as efficient as you possibly can. And hopefully your team will work the same. They will begin to work as effective and as efficiently as they possibly can, so that you guys can really maximize all the time and effort that goes into all the techniques, and get that, be able to get and grab as much profit as you possibly can on each project. Like I said, not all of them are winners. But those that are, you can maximize that profit. All right, guys. So I'll see what I come up with for next week's live stream. And for this type of live stream, is, if you don't know, I'm gonna start doing the construction news Saturday, where this last Saturday, on March 6th, I brought 5 different stories from, various parts of the construction industry. We talked about, I kind of gave a description, kind of talked about them for a bit. But also, this week, I've already kind of started looking at some news, and there's some interesting stuff going on. I saw a software company, looks like they're going to go public, offering some IPO. So I'll talk about that a little bit if you haven't, seen that yet. There's a couple other things going on, so I'll start compiling stuff. But I think the 5 stories was pretty good. Kept me going for a bit. I'll see if it's going to be 5 this week. I might even add 1 or 2 more. So we'll see about that. And I think actually the construction news Saturdays will now be renamed to construction news Saturdays with Steer. All right. Yep. That right, boy. That's right. Okay. Anyways, that's gonna do it for today. So if you guys enjoyed my stories, or if you guys learned anything from any of these videos, please, please, please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell so that you're in the loop for when I release new stuff, or set reminders for when I'm gonna go live. And in case you guys haven't seen it yet, if you go to my channel, you will see, I believe as you did on Monday, I actually posted a video, a short skit. It's pretty much parenting versus project managing. Probably do a couple of these, or more, and kind of loosen up a bit and do a little more, kind of everyday stuff that project managers, that we can relate to. And, different shit like that. You're gonna fuck around a little bit and bullshit around and things like that. So go check that one out. I believe it is called Parenting versus PM, or project managing, and yeah, that's the first foray that I've gone into. So let me know if you guys like it. Go on there, take a watch. Like I said, same thing. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, and yeah, we're gonna get with that. We're gonna get out of here. So don't forget. So I'll be doing this on Wednesdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time for the live stream, and then we're gonna do Saturdays, same time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, for the Construction News Saturdays with Steer. All right. So we'll leave it at that. So guys, I know right now we've been getting vaccinations and things like that. I actually haven't been able to get mine because of my kidney transplant. I'm waiting for the kidney, or for my transplant team to get back to me so that I can make sure if I do end up taking the vaccine. But with the new variants that are popping up all over the place of the coronavirus, you guys need to make sure that you guys keep your distance. We're gonna continue social distancing. Make sure you guys are wearing your masks when you're out to slow the spread of any new variants and all that stuff, because I heard the new ones are actually more contagious than the novel coronavirus. So make sure you keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, keep your co-workers safe, and keep yourself safe. All right, guys. So I think with that, we're gonna go ahead and, like I said, get out of here, and I will see you guys on Saturday for Construction News Saturdays with Steer. All right. So with that, like I said, you guys stay safe.